So get this. What if I told you that the deepest spiritual insights from ancient Buddhist philosophy and the absolute cutting-edge discoveries of modern quantum physics are pointing to the exact same, kind of shocking conclusion about reality itself? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive right into that incredible intersection and see what it means for, well, pretty much everything we think we know.
Okay, so let's start with the big question, the one that's been bugging philosophers for ages. Is the world around us made of solid, stable, permanent stuff, or is it more like a river, a constant flow of temporary, interconnected events that are always changing? This one question is really at the heart of our entire journey today.
And believe me, this isn't a new debate, not by a long shot. For thousands of years, some of the greatest minds on the planet have been wrestling with this exact problem. We're talking everyone from the ancient Greeks to the sages in the Himalayas, all trying to figure out what the bedrock of existence actually is.
Now, if we zoom in on ancient India, this debate really took center stage with two major schools of thought, Vedānta and Buddhism. Both of them had these incredibly deep insights into reality. But here's the thing. Their answers looked like they were in total opposition to each other, and that really set the stage for a philosophical showdown that's been going on for centuries.
To really get what this debate is all about and to see how we might finally solve it, we need to wrap our heads around one single critical Sanskrit concept. It's a word that gets right to the heart of the matter, Svabhāva. So what in the world is Svabhāva? I'm telling you, understanding this one little word is the key that's going to unlock this whole puzzle for us.
Okay, so Svabhāva literally translates to something like own being or self-nature. It's the idea that any object, a rock, a particle, you, me, has some kind of core essence that exists all by itself, completely independent of everything else. It doesn't need anything else to be what it is. Think of it like its fundamental, unchangeable identity. So the billion-dollar question is, does anything in the universe actually have Svabhāva?
And this is where it gets absolutely fascinating. We're about to see what happens when three totally different fields, we're talking modern physics, Buddhist philosophy, and Vedanta, all ask that exact same question. And the conclusion they all reached, completely on their own, is just astonishing.
Just look at this. It's incredible. Modern physics digs deeper and deeper into matter, right? And it finds, well, no thing at the bottom. Just vibrating fields of potential, where a particle only gets its properties through its interactions with other things. Then you have the Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna, who argued that nothing has a self-nature. Everything is empty, or śūnyatā, meaning it only exists because it depends on everything else. And finally, the Vedantic sages said the world of separate things we see is an illusion, mithya, just a projection on one single underlying reality. So you've got three radically different approaches, separated by centuries and cultures, all arriving at the exact same conclusion. Nothing has Svabhāva. Nothing exists on its own. Okay, so that raises a huge question, right? If nothing truly exists on its own, then how do we explain the world? Why does it look so stable and reliable? How does a world of constant change produce patterns we can count on? Well, a brand new model is trying to build a bridge to answer exactly that. It's called the DPV ICRDAM model. And yeah, I know, that is a mouthful, but its goal is actually beautifully simple, to create a single, unified framework where reality can be both permanent and impermanent at the same time, without any contradiction.
All right, here's how it works. Let's break it down. Imagine that at the very base of everything, there's this timeless, permanent ocean of pure potential. The model calls this the neutral reservoir, or NB. This is the ultimate ground of all being. Now, within this ocean, you have potential states, and each one has two sides that can't be separated, like two sides of a coin. One side is physical, and the other is what they call proto-conscious. Then, when these potential states actually manifest, poof, they become the changing, temporary world that we all experience, the apparent world, or SB.
So you see the flow, right? This is the crucial part. We go from that permanent, neutral ground of being, the NB, it moves through a level of unmanifested fields, and finally, it emerges as the particles and structures of our world, the SB. So permanence actually gives birth to impermanence. There's no conflict at all. And this is the genius of it. This explains why things seem stable to us. What we think of as the nature of a thing, like the chairness of a chair, isn't some true independent Svabhāva. It's what the model calls an apparent Svabhāva. It's a set of characteristics that look stable, but it's completely dependent on its context, its relationships, and the potential state it came from. Now you might be wondering, okay, so there's a physical aspect and a proto-conscious aspect. But where do fundamental physical properties like mass, charge, and spin fit into all this?
Are they part of that proto-conscious side?
And the model is super clear on this. The answer is a hard no. Mass, charge, and spin, these are all measurable physical properties. They belong squarely to the physical or non-subjective side of that coin. This keeps the distinction between the two aspects of reality really clean and logical.
So, let's put this all together. What does this new synthesis really mean for how we see the world? Well, it's a pretty profound shift in perspective.
For centuries, the old debate forced everyone to pick a side. Reality was either permanent or it was impermanent. It couldn't be both. But this new model just blows that whole conflict up. It shows us that permanence, that underlying ocean of potential, and impermanence, the world we see and touch, they're not enemies. They're two complementary parts of one single unified reality.
All right, so let's recap the big takeaways here. First, the idea that anything has a solid, independent existence, Svabhāva, is pretty much off the table, according to both physics and philosophy. Second, this new model suggests reality has two sides, a physical one and a proto-conscious one. Third, a permanent underlying potential gives rise to our changing, observable world. And finally, and maybe most importantly, this creates a real bridge between hard science and deep spiritual insight.
And that leaves us with one last really profound thought to chew on. If everything out there in the world is dependent, impermanent, and only exists in relationship to everything else, then what does that say about the nature of our own consciousness, the very thing that's doing all the observing?